Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today. Coming up later on, our infamous roundtable gets together. We'll see what kind of controversies they get into. But between now and then, some great guests and important information coming your way. For example, we'll talk about our community, how it's growing, how fast it's growing, how we can all get involved in that growth. We'll also have a serious discussion about DWI and something called an interlock device and how it relates to that. Stay tuned. And we'll talk about vineyards and wineries and what they mean to our area. All that's coming your way and much more. But first, we turn our attention to free clinics. Some clinics that are doing great work throughout our area and throughout the state. And two very special guests are going to help us learn more about that. Right now, on my immediate right, Randy Jordan, CEO of the North Carolina Association of Free and Charitable Clinics. Next to him is Tim Gallagher. Tim is Executive Director of Safety Net Health of North Carolina. We're going to find out what that is in just a second. Welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Randy, let me start with you very quickly. What's the mission of your association?
Well, we exist to help people that don't have health insurance. And so in 67 clinics across the state, you can walk in there without a bit of health insurance and get your health care taken care of.
Now, I probably should ask this later on, but since you're bringing it up, are these emergency type care? Are these just regular see a physician for routine, for flu, or what?
It's built on primary care, but you'll be surprised what all you can find in a free clinic. You'll find behavioral health, you'll find sometimes specialty care, you'll find dentistry, you can find optometry. There are all kinds of services.
Okay. I want to skip back to Tim for just a second, because when I did your introduction, and I don't want to skip over this, I said you're Executive Director of Safety Net Health. What is that?
Safety Net Health is an association that represents all of the locations that see uninsured across North Carolina. There's about 773 of them.
Now, Randy, let's talk about the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm a little confused. We have the Affordable Care Act, which is still the law of the land, even though it's been gutted in some ways. Now, when that was passed, it was passed specifically to make sure we didn't leave people behind and that there were no more uninsured people. Now, wouldn't that have taken some pressure off of your perspective in terms of free clinics, or what's the deal?
You would think it would, and I would say it did a little bit, Jim. When the Affordable Care Act passed, there was about 15% of North Carolinians uninsured. The number dropped to 11, but that's still over 1 million people that need health care.
So, I mean, people are still falling through the cracks. Tim, you represent in what you're doing with Safety Net providers other than clinics. So how is all this and the politics and the regulations and the laws where we are now, how is that affecting, the status of our healthcare system now? How is that affecting the people you work with?
Big question. So there's a difference between coverage and care, and I like to think about the locations we represent actually as care. You could leave here today and get seen. Coverage is good, and if you're able to pull out a card out of your pocket, you're likely to have access, not necessarily every place, and certainly not in rural areas. But Safety Net Health actually looks to organize all the locations that see people regardless of their ability to pay.
And you're also involved in this Healthy Opportunities program, which I assume has something to do with the other kinds of factors, things like hunger, safe housing have an impact on health. Very quickly, how are you involved with that? How's that going?
It's going real well. Thanks for asking. We're in the middle of an application to locate a pilot in our region. The genesis of it is really to help people receive non-medical benefits that influence their health status.
All right. Randy, before we lose time here, very quickly, tell me what are we going to see from your association and from free clinics in North Carolina in 2020?
There's a lot of change happening in our state in healthcare, and we're going to try and keep pace with it. We started a telemedicine program. We're trying to train against patient-centered medical home standards. And we hope that when a patient goes in and out of Medicaid, that they'll not feel the difference.
All right, up on screen, a very, very important website I want you to check out, www.ncafcc.org. That stands for the association, ncafcc.org. Please check that out. And a shout out and thanks to the good folks at KB Reynolds Charitable Trust. Up on screen, www.kbr.org is their website as well. So Randy and Tim, thanks for all you do, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Triad Today. This gentleman who's with us now, a very good friend to the show, and he was here many years ago giving us some legal tips and things, but we're glad to have him back for a very serious discussion about DWI and in particular something called an interlock device that's related to this situation. Next to me is my good friend Clark Dummett. He's founder of Dummett, Fraden Attorneys at Law. Good to see you again, sir.
Great to see you.
After somebody's been charged with a DWI, Clark, I understand that you can seek something called a conditional restoration of a license,
Yes.
driver's license. Now, first of all, what is a conditional restoration of a license, and how do you get it?
Well, if you've had multiple DWIs, like 2 in a row or 3 spaced out over time, you lose your license and you get no driving privilege. So then we have to go through a conditional restoration hearing and get you conditionally restored. But that's where the interlock kicks in.
All right, now tell me, I'm going to ask you about the interlock, but before you get going, let's explain to people what it is. We have some video of an interlock device we'll show some of that as we're talking, but what is it? How do you explain what an interlock device is?
An ignition interlock is a little teeny breathalyzer that's attached to your ignition. So they install it into your car and you have to blow zeros before you can start your car.
It just won't start up at all.
Won't start up at all.
Now, when exactly are they required? I know you talked about somebody with multiple arrests. Can it be required when it's not a multiple? School me on that.
Yes, it can. If you have a DWI and your blood alcohol level is 15 or higher, or 0.15 or higher, then to get even a limited driving privilege on a first offense, you're going to have to install an ignition interlock for a year.
For a year.
Yes.
Now, obviously, if you've been drinking and blow into the interlock device, you've said the car's not going to start. Are there other things that can cause the car not to start, other than just blowing into it?
The device is a safety device, not a measuring instrument. And I really emphasize that. It's great at not starting your car and keeping our community safe. It's not great at really measuring what's on your breath or if it's alcohol or not. So there are a lot of false positives.
Well, that's not good. If you're trying to work your way through the system and go to hearings and whatever, it looks like you're guilty of something else, and maybe something else caused it to lock up.
We have a lot of clients that have not been drinking alcohol but get locked out of their cars. It's a real frustration. As long as there's no alcohol and you stay with your car and you blow zeros again 5 minutes later, it's probably not going to be a problem at the DMV. But the problem clients have is if they can't start their car and they're late for work, they leave.
Yeah.
And then you've got a positive blow on the machine and nothing showing you don't have alcohol, then you need a lawyer.
All right, now walk me through what happens after a lockout occurs, and do I go get an immediate hearing or try to defend myself against that? Because it's almost like you're defending yourself within a defense. You've had the DWI, now you've got the interlock device, now you got to explain why it got locked out. Take me through those steps.
Well, you would get a letter from the DMV sometimes 3 months, 6 months after it occurred, and they're going to ask you what happened at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, and you're not going to remember. So it's real important that you keep logs if you ever get locked out. Take video of it. Here I've been locked out of my car. Here I can show you I don't have any alcohol. So document it well, because you're probably going to end up in a fairly contested hearing at the Division of Motor Vehicles.
All right, I want to get not that this is a commercial or anything, but I just want to make sure we're clear on one point, and that is there are other reasons for losing a license other than drinking and driving, and like speeding or something like that. Now, are you so specialized that you're not going to help me with that, or can you help me with that too if I've gotten caught for speeding or something?
Jim, we've got an attorney for that.
Okay. I think you just gave a commercial slogan there. All right, up on the screen, if you want to make an appointment or for more information, dummettfraden.com, and I'll say it for the WSJS radio listening audience again, dummettfraden.com, or you can call 877-978-3218. That's 877-978-3218. Clark, thanks for coming back. It's been a while since we've seen you, and I'm glad you explained. I wanted to learn more about the interlock device because it's important stuff. And thanks for all you do. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, Jim.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Now on Triad Today, and with me is our good friend David Mounts, Chairman and CEO of Inmar, and we can get a shot of David now, but I'm not going to let him say anything yet, because I just want to compliment you again on something. Last month we talked about that great keynote speech that you gave to the Winston-Salem Chamber annual meeting, and in it you talked about a lot of things, including progress and change in our areas. So before you and I talk about something, you were good enough, David, to send over a video, and I want the folks at home to watch this because it says a lot graphically about where we are and where we're headed and why we're going there. Now, I'll give a quick disclaimer for our radio listening audience. It's a music-oriented video, so enjoy a couple minutes of music. We'll come back and we'll talk about it. Great video. Thanks for sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure, Jim.
David, it's really amazing when you think about it, all that's been accomplished in that area and how many people and organizations have been involved.
It is. We have great momentum in our city, and when you look at those accomplishments, we can all feel very, very proud about those. I think we've moved quickly and urgently. We've established a really powerful ecosystem. But I would say the most important thing that we have to do right now is we have to double down on that investment that we made. We have to create a culture that is sustainable, one that constantly wants to innovate and build new businesses and grow. And we're at a stage where that momentum can really be something that's advantageous to us if we double down and invest more in it. And we need to do that with both our public and private funds in order to really capitalize on the momentum we have right now.
I think you've told me in the past the one thing you don't want to do is rest on your laurels.
That's exactly right.
I've asked you this before in other contexts, but I'm going to ask it again because it's pertinent here. There are going to be a lot of folks watching this program and listening to this program that say, hey, this stuff that you and David talked about, it's great. We appreciate what David does for the community. But how can I have any kind of an impact as an individual on how we grow and how fast we grow and in what direction we grow?
Yeah, it's time for everyone to recognize that the place to not be is on the sidelines. You know, we are still a relatively small community, so we have to punch above our weight class. But we can do that because we can win with competency and teamwork and coordination. Everyone can participate in innovation. If you have business experiences, you can be a mentor to an entrepreneur.
Okay.
If you have funds to invest, you can invest those funds in some of the new enterprises that are starting up. Businesses that you like, that you think, that's a really good idea. I think I would like to support that. You can also be a funder of the nonprofit agencies that are supporting these many entrepreneurs. We have accelerators and incubators and entities like Venture Cafe that are all nonprofit and are there to support and encourage these entrepreneurs.
Well, that's up on screen. I'm glad you said that. Venture Cafe, winstonsalem.org. I hope people check that out. And also a good shout out to you and your team at nmar.com. And we hope people check that out. Thanks again for showing the video and for all you do.
Let's make this the Roaring 20s. Everyone off the sidelines and into the innovation and entrepreneurial game.
I'm ready for it.
Thanks,
The
Jim.
Roaring 20s. Be right back. On Triad Today, and wonder if any of you at home have visited a local vineyard or a winery lately. There are a lot of them in our area, and I think you should, and I think you'll want to after you see this segment. We're going to talk to two great gentlemen who are very involved in promoting the wine industry. Next to me, Dan McLaughlin, who's Secretary of North Carolina Fine Wine Society. Next to him, J.W. Ray, who's come to join us today. He's President and CEO of Jolo Winery and Vineyards. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Dan, tell me about the Fine Wine Society. What is it? What's the mission, and who do you represent?
We have a collective of 32 vineyards from across North Carolina. It's 501c6, and we have two goals, which are to promote the fine wines here in North Carolina that are being grown by viniferin hybrids, and also raise scholarship money. So.
Scholarship money, and that goes to what? Help kids get to, or adults to get to community colleges or get degrees in being vintners and things like that?
Correct. It's a 501c3 that is funded by our organization and people like you and other ones who might want to support us. It's for North Carolina students going to North Carolina colleges or universities pursuing wine-related careers. So it's enology, viticulture, hospitality, and fermentation, so things like that.
Yeah, and having an impact right here. JW, let's get a plug in for your
Thank you.
winery and vineyard. Where's it located?
Pilot Mountain.
Pilot Mountain. I love that area.
Yes,
love
sir.
that area.
Beautiful.
And when did you start the business?
April of 2014, so just 6 years now.
Now, I know that the vineyards and the wineries are competitive. That's okay. But we have this society to sort of pull things together. Why is that important, do you think, JW?
That's a great question. Well, I wouldn't say competitive. I think we're all more like frenemies. So
Yeah.
nobody wants to go to a wine trail with one winery, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Napa is Napa because there's so many places to visit.
Right.
So, this organization I think is really special for a couple of reasons. Jay Raffaldini and Chuck Jones, who established it really with a bifurcated goal of bringing, I think, a lot of attention that was really due to North Carolina wine.
Yeah.
So kind of was overshadowed by New York and Virginia, even to this day in some of the world competitions. So having Chuck and Jay Raffaldini create the society to highlight what's being produced in the state. It's almost a $3 billion business now, the wine business in the state.
It's a great industry. And when I was coming up 100 and some years ago, all people talked about was Napa Valley.
Right.
Said, well, wine has to come from California or from Italy or France, and then we've proven them wrong.
Right.
There's I don't want to lose time before I mention to get in a plug for, there's a gala coming up. Tell me about that.
Right. The gala happens right after our competition. We'll hold it in Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem, we feel, is really kind of a gateway to the vineyards for around here. There's a lot of places you can visit.
Now, can anybody come to the gala, or is it just for the association members?
You need
You're
a
right.
ticket.
You need a ticket, but it is open to the public. And so we want everyone to come out and cheer on their favorite wineries and see how they do.
And there's a competition. Are you going to have some winners or something there? Or?
We do. We have. That's how we promote and help fund the organization is through this competition. And what they do is they submit their wines. We have the toughest competition of any in this state competition in the country. It's blind, which means you just don't know. You'll know that it's a Merlot and the year it was produced, but you won't know who the producer was. So you wouldn't know if it was a Jolo wine or not.
It'd be interesting, JW, see
Yes,
if you could actually blindfold yourself and see if you could taste your wine against somebody else's.
Me, I could. It's almost like the smell of your own child. It's unmistakable. You know it, no matter where it is. But
Or you could have the child drink it, but that's illegal. That's illegal. All right, up on screen, I just want to get another plug in. The gala's on Saturday, February 15th. And again, it's held where?
At the Millennium Center here in Winston-Salem.
Okay. And here are some websites I want you to check out, because this will take you to that and some other information. ncfinewines.com, ncfinewines.com. For the radio listening audience, please check that out, especially if you're thinking about taking a tour and going around to the different wineries and seeing the vineyards. And also a plug in for JW's place, jolovineyards.com, jolovineyards.com. And we can't leave out a special thanks to the good folks that visit Winston-Salem, Marquita, Rich, all the great folks over there who do so much to bring in conventions and sporting events and promote vineyards and all sorts of things. They do a great job. Their website's up on screen. Visit winstonsalem.com. To Dan and to JW, thanks for what you're doing and keeping the industry going. Appreciate it, guys.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back after this. On Triad Today, I guess that's still the name of the show. Things go on here during the commercial breaks. We're not sure. Anyway, it's time for the roundtable. On my right, but always the political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster, journalist. Speaking of great, next to him is a lovely, talented, brilliant face of ABC 45, My 48, author, public speaker, Carol Andrews. We're out of time.
I was going to say, I owe him money.
And yeah, that's right. And next to, and you can still get her book if you go online or whatever. And next to her is Dave Plyler, chairman of the Forsyth County Commissioners, and we welcome everybody here. All right, guys and gals, late last year, we talked about how Fresh Market received $700,000 in incentives to stay in Greensboro. Now, Greensboro City Council says, hey, we want to give Syngenta $3.7 million to stay here. Guys and gals, is this a good idea or just another example of taxpayer-funded corporate welfare? Go,
Yeah, I was thinking, Jim, how many times we've talked about incentives on this program over the years, and I've always justified it as kind of a necessary evil. If you don't do it, the next state over will do it, or the county. I'm getting to the point where I'm looking at it more as extortion. I'm getting kind of sick of it. I really am.
And we don't have anything personally against anybody at these
I don't
companies.
care the company that,
but
they shouldn't extort money from the taxpayers to stay there.
Carol Andrews.
Well, I wonder, I just kind of have to balance the incentive with what the city is getting. If the city is getting more jobs, if the city is putting its people to work, getting people insured, then I think there's an argument.
Dave Plyler.
I'm glad I'm here because I'm the only one who can give incentives as an elected official.
That's
but I will
right.
say this, Ogie is part right and Carol is part right. And a lot of this incentive business depends on situation, the amount of money you have, the amount of jobs you're going to get, what deadlines you're expected to hit in terms of employment. For example, when Dell was here, Dell got $19 million to come here.
And then they folded after,
And they returned every dime.
Right. Of course, the argument there is what could have been done as the money's sitting around. What could you have done with those kind of resources if you wanted to put them somewhere else? But yeah, I understand. Let's go to U-Haul now. U-Haul has recently announced it will no longer hire anyone who uses tobacco or nicotine products. Their hiring policy is legal in 39 states, not here in North Carolina. Is it fair to exclude a smoker from getting a job? And if so, would you like to see North Carolina adopt that policy? Ogie.
Not really, Jim. I just think of the old days where when you were almost required to smoke, and newsrooms. I remember. Well, Dave would remember because he's much older than us.
Yeah.
But everybody, you couldn't see the front of the newsroom, and the sports writers would be tapping it out, with a stogie in their mouth. Copy.
But Carol, it seems to me, how are you going to monitor this thing too?
I don't think you monitor it, but I think it'll go the way of restaurants where there'll be no smoking places. But I'd rather see a company than saying, you just must stop if you're going to work for me, offer a smoking cessation program or something that would help employees.
And Dave, of course, it goes to health insurance. They don't want people smoking. And what's your take on this?
Well, I agree with that. However, I do think we have certain inalienable rights, and that word is very important. If you don't remember that, then you're going to pick and choose all the way down the line.
Right.
If you want to smoke, and you don't get a job, that's your decision. No big deal.
All right, this year a lot of folks are running for higher office everywhere while still serving in another elected position. Should local, state, and federal office seekers be required to resign their current job to run for another office? Quickly, Ogie.
I don't think so, Jim. It's always been that way that you don't resign unless you win.
Carol.
I agree. You keep your job. That's telling me I need to quit one job before I apply for another.
Dave.
It still depends. If the former mayor of New York could quit his job, it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah, all right. High school students in Buncombe County are upset because the county allows kids to wear shirts and hats to school that have a Confederate flag emblem. Now, we've talked about statues, we've talked about flags. Now these students in the schools upset about emblems, Confederate emblems on clothing, and they want to ban them. Any thoughts on this, Ogie?
As much as I would like to say they should be banned, you really can't. People have the right to show their ignorance and show what a sorry upbringing they've had.
Carol.
13 flags of the Confederacy. I'm thinking we're talking about the battle flag.
Right.
It is a right of expression unless you have a school situation where there is a standard mode of dress. The other part of that is, why make it a hate situation when you can make it a learning situation and have the kids talk about it? Something good for the debate team.
Of course, you have to hope that the kid wearing it wants to learn to teach people.
But who's to say?
You don't know.
And I hate to be the one to argue for him, but who's to say he's any more wrong than me wearing a Led Zeppelin shirt?
Right. Dave.
It's an emotional issue, and I think generally speaking, some people who want to can use that as an emotional issue to get where they want to be and get what they want.
Yes.
So I think it's a personal right to do it, but part of the problem there, in my opinion, is the younger folk in elementary schools, for example, or junior high school, have no idea what the older folk are talking about.
Right, exactly. We now know that New York City has been paying their homeless people to relocate to other states, giving them airplane tickets, whatever, but they don't notify the destination city. Quickly, are you okay with how New York is exporting homeless people to other states? Ogie?
Something strikes me as wrong about that, Jim. It's almost like immigrants within our country. You know, we're
Yeah,
exporting
send 'em
our
out.
tired, our homeless, our
Yeah.
poor huddle masses.
Carol?
It's very wrong, and if you read on, you know that a lot of them are taking the money, spending the money, then coming back to New York, so it's not solving the
Dave?
problem.
It is wrong, and there's some scam in it too.
All right. Finally, guys and gals, last month Reebok unveiled a new vegan tennis shoe made entirely of plants, including eucalyptus leaves. The vegan tennis shoes will go on sale later this year. My question to you is, you plan to buy a pair of these plant tennis shoes, these vegan tennis shoes, Ogie?
Well, I hadn't given it any thought, really, but sure, why not? I mean, hemp is another thing that's going to be everywhere before long.
Right.
Sure, why not?
Carol?
It's plant-based, it's what cows eat. I wouldn't take it out in the pasture.
You wouldn't wear them? Dave?
No, I'd wear them.
You would,
I
you
just
wear.
wouldn't wear them out in the pasture.
All right,
Some
Dave.
hamburger places are replacing their hamburgers with what you're talking about. My problem is I'd like to taste it before I use it.
You don't taste tennis shoes, do you,
If
Dave?
it's made out of fruits and
That'd-
vegetables.
That'd be so gross.
Dave's
That'd be
been,
so gross.
there's things that you folks at home don't know about Dave, and we'll do a whole documentary on that later. Well, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. A 44-year-old Japanese billionaire is advertising for a woman to fly with him to the moon on SpaceX maiden voyage in 2023. When asked what's really behind his moon mating stunt, the man finally confessed, "Hey, I just want to make out with a woman who'd send me into orbit." You got to be honest about these things, don't you, Otis?
The only man.
Have you kissed a woman that never mind, that sends you into orbit with that? All right.
That's
For
a
everybo-
different show.
Yeah, that's right. For everybody here except for Dave, we're going to do something on him later. I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.